Alrighty, let's get to these games. I'll start you off with Boise State up against Penn State. With all these players, Abdul Carter, you got Tyler Warren, Drew Aller, clearly Ashton Jeanty, who finished second in the Heisman. I think the most important player, which is going to determine how close this game is the quarterback for Boise State and Maddox Madsen. He's protected the football really well this year, only 3 interceptions, but he's got to find a way to be aggressive, take his shots in this one, and also still find the way not to give the ball over to Penn State.
Yeah, I had a chance to interview Maddox Madsen yesterday at the media days for both teams, and I would say that his demeanor was very stoic in a good way. He didn't look like the moment was going to be too big for him, and that's been something that has embodied who Maddox Madsen is that he doesn't let his highs get too high or his lows get too low, and frankly, that's a bit of his play style as well. It's not necessarily going to blow you out of the water in terms of his arm talent or athleticism, but he does everything pretty dang well, and he's made very good decisions this year with just 4 interceptions on the season. I do think that this Penn State defensive front presents a very unique challenge. Boise State has seen Oregon this year at Autzen Stadium. This is going to be one of the first times since game 1 for the Boise State team that they're going to have all 5 offensive linemen fully healthy and up and running. So I think that I think the matchups are going to be good in the trenches, and Maddox Madsen's just got to get away from putting the ball in harm's way. Even though the interception numbers aren't high at all, there have been a lot of dropped interceptions. If you're a Boise State fan, you've seen them, and you're just going, oh. And so whether he's got great luck, I just think Penn State athletically, if they get their hands on some of those footballs, then you might see a repeat of the SMU. So the turnover battle is going to be number 1 in terms of Boise State trying to pull off the unthinkable, which is to upset a double-digit favorite.
Yeah, I also think another thing that's not being talked about a lot, because a lot of people just parachute in, right, when talking about Boise State. You've watched every snap of theirs this year, so have I. And you look at Ashton Jeanty, you see his numbers, and you would never think that this guy's been banged up and really hurt this year, but he has been. I know the rest can concern some teams because, are they going to be rusty? But I think the rest here is going to help Boise State because now you have Ashton Jeanty as healthy as he's maybe been since the start of the season.
Yeah, the tear that Ashton Jeanty was on, Zach, you watched this just as closely as I did, and I follow this team and I cover this team for Bronco Nation News in Boise, Idaho. It's been that game, that he was on that tear, just putting up unbelievable numbers, and then that UNLV game happened. The first UNLV game, he hyperextends his elbow, and really in that game he played through that pain, but he was wearing a bionic arm. He had a huge elbow brace on, and it really neutralized one of his greatest weapons, which is his stiff arm. He ended up trying to carry the ball in his bionic arm, and it didn't go great. He fumbled in a game or two. So I think having him back to being fully healthy, and I saw it towards the tail end of the season, certainly in that second UNLV game in the Mountain West Championship game, Ashton Jeanty fully healthy he's the best player in college football. And I love Travis Hunter. I live in the Denver area. My last coaching job was at the University of Colorado. But if you're in a big spot, there's nobody in college football today I would rather have than Ashton Jeanty fully healthy.
When we try to determine how close of a game that this is going to be, as Coach Mike Sanford is here with us, you look at the Oregon game. We saw Penn State just play Oregon in the Big 12 championship game or Big 10 championship game. For most of the contest, it felt like it was a 2-score game, and I know it ended up being Penn State losing by 8. As you said earlier in the season, Oregon went up against Boise State. I thought Boise State should have won the game when you look back at it, but they ended up losing by 3. When you look at where these teams are right now, Penn State getting better and better, Boise State having this incredible season, how big of a difference do you think both these teams are with Penn State being a heavy favorite in this one?
Well, I think a lot of confidence in Penn State, certainly in the Vegas lines, is predicated on the performance against SMU. And if you take away, it's a football game, so clearly these things that I'm going to mention are impactful in the turnout of a college football contest. If you take out some of the explosive plays and certainly some of the boneheaded turnovers by Kevin Jennings of SMU, that game is probably a little bit closer, as we know. And so I do think that Boise State as a team is not the type of team that turns the football over. But the reality of who Penn State is they're very talented in their fronts. They're really good. And so they have the opportunity in front of them against a team that will be outmatched. Boise State will be outmatched. I was at both media days. I saw Penn State getting off the bus and I saw Boise State getting off the bus, and you could tell which one was the big Big Ten team, and you could tell which one plays in the Mountain West Conference. But with that being said, Boise State's offensive line, I think, can stand up to the challenge. Boise State, their strength defensively is in their ability to stop the run. Ahmed Hassanin is a household name in Boise, Idaho, and my prediction is that he'll be a household name nationally after this game tomorrow night. I think that it's going to come down to who's going to make more mistakes. But this is going to be a tightly contested game. The only way that I see Boise State having the same fate that SMU did in terms of getting obliterated on the scoreboard is if there are more, I'd say if there are more than 2 turnovers by Boise State, this is going to be an uneven matchup.
Coach Mike Sanford here with us. All right, so we took care of Boise State and Penn State. Let's get to the games coming up on New Year's Day. We'll start with Arizona State and Texas. I love the chirping by Sam Leavitt going into this one because that really reflects who Arizona State is with Kenny Dillingham. And then it was Quinn Ewers, coach, who basically, I felt like just said, yeah, I saw it. And, I take that personally, and we'll see what ends up happening coming up on Wednesday.
Yeah, I love the chirping from Leavitt, the Arizona State quarterback, but I actually like the player even more. He's a player that, as the years progressed, I remembered him in the recruiting process when I was, evaluating quarterbacks nationally. But seeing where he has gone in this offense, and Marcus Arroyo has done a great job reinventing himself after the UNLV job didn't go great as a head man there. I really like Leavitt, the player. I actually think that advantage Arizona State, in my opinion, in terms of quarterback play. Quinn Ewers played well in the first round game. I was impressed with what I saw. Some of those great traits of arm talent were on display. I just think that Quinn Ewers in big spots just hasn't consistently delivered and has turned the football over. And this being a neutral site game and not at the University of Texas in Austin, I think that this is going to be a lot closer of a game than people think. I actually predict that Arizona State and Boise State are going to be in one possession games in the fourth quarter, and it's going to make for great TV after what was a really rough first week for TV viewership.
Yeah, it's funny that you bring up Ewers because all he's done has won at Texas and, actually bring Texas back. They won the Big 12 last year. We're in the SEC championship game this year in their inaugural season, the SEC. But when I watch him, I always have that, but I kind of want to just see this program with Sark and Arch Manning. So Quinn Ewers, he could shut a lot of people up, or it could be one of those situations where a lot of us end up being proven right after what we see on Wednesday.
Yeah, he's an awesome young man. He came in with a massive NIL deal. He had all the he's one of the early quarterbacks in this new space that we find ourselves in. And it's been disappointing because he was one of those Bino Cook back in the day talking about Ron Powless. He was like the guaranteed Heisman Trophy winner. And he hasn't delivered on that front, but he has been a really steadying presence for this Texas program that hasn't had any consistency over the last 2 decades, really a decade and a half. So I've been impressed with Quinn Ewers, and I love the athleticism of Arch Manning. What I don't want to see from Steve Sarkisian in this game, to be candid, is having Arch Manning on the sideline and then just throw him out there for a random quarterback sneak under center, because it looks like he's not very comfortable getting a snap coming off the sideline for one play. So it's going to be a fun contest to watch. Texas is so stinking good in their defensive front, one of the best, if not the best in college football this year. So that will provide, it's going to present some challenges for Arizona State, a very physical team themselves. Cam Scattaboo is also must-watch TV. I'm really excited to watch this matchup.
Coach Mike Sanford here with us. So Ohio State had a great performance up against Tennessee, the most impressive performance, I thought, in the first round of the college football playoff. Oregon, though, has been the best team all throughout the year. They beat Ohio State earlier in the season by 1 point, but Ohio State is the betting favorite in this one now on a neutral site at the granddaddy of them all in the Rose Bowl. Do you think that is an overreaction by Vegas off the Tennessee game, or are they right making Ohio State the favorite in this one?
Of the 4 opening round games, Ohio State did the most for me. It was a team that I thought had some warts coming in just in terms of play calling. They looked like there were some confidence issues coming out of the Michigan loss, and just overall belief in Ryan Day and Chip Kelly to cut it loose and let Will Howard play. I thought Will Howard played arguably his best game. And if we see that same Will Howard against the Oregon Ducks in a neutral site game there in Pasadena, I think Ohio State not only wins that game, I think Ohio State is the odds-on favorite to win the whole tournament. And a lot of people are talking about the winner of the Rose Bowl is most likely going to end up winning the national championship. I believe that because I thought about 10, 15 days ago, if you would have asked me who's going to win this thing, I was sold on the Oregon Ducks because they were the team with the fewest warts. But I see now with an Ohio State team that's going to play certainly a lot more confidently. And if Will Howard can overcome some of his end of game woes, because this is going to be a tight game. This is going to come down to potentially the final possession. If Will Howard can overcome some of those, decision making and time management, what he did at Autzen Stadium in that first matchup was deplorable, to be honest, as a former quarterback coach myself. I think that this could be a very confident team and arguably the best roster, in college football.
And I could make the case, I think Quinn Ewers has a lot to gain this weekend, this week in these 4 games that are going to happen over the next 2 days. But I look at Dillon Gabriel too. We know that Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, whatever way, 1, 2, whoever you want to put 1, whoever you want to put 2, are going to be the first 2 quarterbacks taken. That third quarterback spot is really up for grabs. And last year, I know he didn't end up being the third overall quarterback taken, but Bo Nix made that big rise, and no one would have ever thought 3 months before the draft that he would have been the 12th overall pick. If Dillon Gabriel, who played his best game of the season up against Ohio State early in the year, does that again and wins, I could see him end up being the third best quarterback or the third quarterback taken in this draft. How about yourself?
I could see that too. I mean, there's some measurables that do go against Dillon Gabriel. He's not obviously 6'3", 6'4". Quinn Ewers he fits more the traditional quarterback model, but you look at Kyler Murray, you look at Baker Mayfield, a lot of these players in the National Football League that are having a semblance of success. I know Kyler Murray is probably not a great one to bring up right now, but I think that Dillon Gabriel, as the season progressed, as he got more comfortable in Will Stein's offensive system, you started to see some of those wow traits that you saw when he was at Oklahoma, when he was at UCF, and I'm excited to watch him play. I really enjoyed his Big Ten championship performance. I thought that was as well as I've seen him play in terms of really cutting it loose and showing all those skill sets that he does have. Dillon Gabriel is a fun player to watch. He's gritty, he's tough, he makes things happen off schedule. So you're right. I in terms of me and what I evaluate and what I like in the quarterback position, I would put Dillon Gabriel as a slight favorite as the third quarterback drafted over Quinn Ewers, unless Quinn Ewers, like you said, does really capitalize on this postseason and puts more great tape, in high leverage situations out there.
Do you give the edge? I think it's so close. I personally go slightly Shedeur over Cam. Are you in that same boat, or do you like Cam over Shedeur?
Well, I almost sometimes, this is a really random thought as it relates particularly to the New York Giants. I know Drew Lock ruined a lot of plans yesterday. He did a great job having one of the top quarterback performances in the history of the NFL in exactly the wrong time. So you got to put away your backpack sellies. You got to get that Drew Lock backpack celebration, because I don't think he's going to be the franchise quarterback for the New York Giants.
Hot take.
Fact, I think that you're going to end up having the franchise quarterback, and the draft pick for the New York Giants, and hear me out on this one, is going to be the apple of their eye from last year. And it's going to end up being a trade to acquire J.J. McCarthy. And that's how I see this thing going for the Giants franchise. I know the Mara family loved J.J. McCarthy in the evaluation process, but Malik Neighbors was just sitting there, and you got to take a franchise altering talent at the receiver position. It wouldn't surprise me to see JJ there. I think that the Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward discussions can be really fun to analyze, to break down, to follow as we get closer to draft day, because I think it's going to be more about preference and what you want. I still think that Shedeur Sanders somehow, some way is going to be the starting quarterback for the Las Vegas Raiders. I just see the franchise fit. I see the need for entertainment, in a Raiders franchise that spent a ton of money on their building and just hasn't really captured the attention and the passion of the local fan base there in Las Vegas. I just think he's the perfect quarterback for that franchise, and I just can't unsee it.
Let me just follow then up here with your J.J. McCarthy take. Do you think J.J. could be better than either Shedeur or Cam Ward?
I love J.J. McCarthy. I was a detractor. I thought watching his film at Michigan, I felt like he was a great system fit. They ran the ball well, and I just didn't see a ton of just pure arm talent on his film at Michigan, which is strange because I go to the combine, I'm sitting in the front row, I'm watching him right in front of Bo Nix, and I was just blown away with his arm talent at the combine. And I was like, well, unbelievable character. He's a proven winner. He's a great athlete. He can extend plays. And he's got great arm talent. So yeah, I think he checks a whole heck of a lot of boxes. Not to mention that he got to go into the best situation, clearly, with the quarterback guru of all quarterback gurus, Kevin O'Connell, to sit back and learn, watching Sam Darnold reinvent himself as a quarterback in the NFL. And Sam Darnold is a bona fide top 6 quarterback today in the National Football League, which I never would have said a year or two ago.
All righty, let me get your thoughts. One more college football playoff game that we got to break down with Coach Mike Sanford. I look at Georgia and Notre Dame. I've been on this network, I think, since 2018. I have never picked Notre Dame in a big game. I think it's different this year. I like Notre Dame up against Georgia, and I still don't know, even though he played okay in the second half of the SEC championship game, considering the circumstances, I don't know what to expect out of Gunnar Stockton. Where are you at between the Irish and the Bulldogs?
Well, the biggest X factor is exactly what you mentioned, Gunnar Stockton. And I had the smell test on Gunnar Stockton for me was such that I think the dude is an absolute baller. And I think he's a dog. And I think he's just been sitting there waiting in the wings. And I think it's one of those things that probably internally that team knows that this guy's got something to him, something special about him. So he is the great X factor. If he doesn't perform at a high level, I have Notre Dame winning in this spot. But the great X factor in this game and why I think it's going to be must-see TV is because I think Gunnar Stockton has this just innate ability to win football games, and he did it in his real first opportunity to do it. It was so fun to watch him play and showing the toughness, the athleticism, crazy arm talent that he threw, some of those sideline out passes that he made. I'm really excited for this matchup. If I were a betting man, I would take Gunnar Stockton and the Georgia Bulldogs, because I just think this kid has the X factor. It's like Stetson Bennett, but with real talent.
How about that? Coach Mike Sanford, we appreciate the time. Happy New Year. Enjoy all the games, all right?
You too. Appreciate you having me on, Zach.